So with week 2 in the books, we'll have a look back at the week's matchups, top performers, and preview next week's matchups. So the first matchup of the week I'm going to go through was Sad Sacks versus UNR. Sad Sacks finished the week with 598 points. UNR finished with 363 points. This was a massacre of epic proportion. Sad Sacks team had a huge week, and Unicorns and Rainbows team didn't quite show up. So some of the top performers for Sad Sacks, he had Jeff Carter, 52.5 fantasy points, 26.3 points per game on the week, 2 goals, 4 assists, 3 shots. They only played 2 games, so solid 2 games for Carter there. Then I got Ryan Getzlaff, totaled him 54 points, 18 points per game, a goal and 3 assists, 11 shots, 3 hits on the week. His next player I got here is Tommy Wingles, who back-to-back weeks, solid performer for Sad Sacks. 72 fantasy points on the week, 18 points per game, which is ridiculous. Goal and assist, 20 shots, 20 hits on the week. That's a fantastic week. Hopefully Wingles keeps it up. No, it's looking good right now for him. His next player I got Henrik Zetterberg, 46 fantasy points on the week, 15.4 per game, 2 goals and 2 assists on the week. Next, he had both his goalies had stellar weeks. Quick 52.5 points, 26.3 per game, 2 wins, 2 goals against, 51 saves with a shutout. And then Kari Lehtinen, 46.5 points on the week, 2 wins, 5 goals against, 68 saves. So solid performances there from Sad Sacks. UNR, top performer was James Neal. Broke out with a hat-trick in the one game, so the majority of these points came from that game, but still was his top performer on the week, was 69.5 fantasy points on the week, 4 goals, game winner included in that, and 12 shots on net. His next best performer was Ryan Kessler, 57 fantasy points, 18.9 per game, goal and assist, 10 PIM, 10 shots, 9 hits. That's a solid week from a guy like Kessler. Then Rask had 45.5 fantasy points on the week. He was also with 2 wins, no losses, 4 goals against, and 63 saves. So good to see a rebound week from Rask. It'll be interesting to see going forward with the Char injury how that affects him, if it does at all. His next best player I got here is Logan Couture, finally breaking out with a 59.5 fantasy point week. 3 goals, 3 assists, 18 shots, 14.9 points per game. Pretty solid week for Couture. The players least likely to succeed this week for Sad Sacks was TJ Brody, who last week was in his top tier of players. Brody only had 10 fantasy points on the week. He averaged 3.3 per game with 3 shots and 1 hit. That's a dud of a week right there. His next one I got here, Louis Eriksson. He's got 2 Bruins here, Louis Eriksson and Brad Marchand. Eriksson had 14 points on the week, Marchand 17.5. Eriksson 4.7 per game, and Marchand 5.8 per game. That's not good enough. Hopefully they rebound. If not, they may be hitting the waiver wire. For UNR, he had 2 really bad performances and one that, well, I'll get to that. So anyway, so Silverberg, 14 fantasy points on the week, 4.7 per game, just an assist, -1, 7 shots, 1 hit. That's a duck week. And then I believe that's Jack Johnson, with 13 fantasy points, 4.3 per game, 1 shot, 5 hits. A terrible week. Then one person I feel is low. He's a solid player and had, Malkin had 21.5 fantasy points, 7.2 per game, 1 goal, 2 assists, -4 plus-minus rating on the week with 6 shots. That's not a very productive week from a guy like Malkin. You expect to see, I'm going to even say at least 5 points per game more out of a guy like him. So in the next matchup, we had Puck Yeah versus Sean Sloppy Seconds, with Puck Yeah coming on top by 87.5 points, scoring 509 to Sean Sloppy Seconds 422. So this is a pretty good matchup for both teams. Both had pretty productive weeks. Some top performers for Puck Yeah. Jerome McGinley had a breakout week, 55.5 fantasy points, 8.6 per game, 2 goals, 2 assists, 10 shots, 8 hits. That's a pretty good week from McGinley. His next player I got on here is Darcy Kemper, 48.5 fantasy points, 24.3 per game, 2 wins, no losses, 2 goals against, 43 saves, one shutout. Kemper is absolutely on fire right now for the Wild, so good for him. As next player I got on here, Tyler Seguin. 46 fantasy points on the week, 2 goals, 3 assists, 11 shots and 3 hits. Another good week from Seguin. He's off to a good start as well. Pacioretty from the Habs, 36 fantasy points on the week, goal and 2 assists in only a couple of games, so pretty good. Plekanec is his next player I got on here, who he also only played 2 games, obviously being another Canadian, and he got a goal and assist in those 2 games, so a pretty good week from Plekanec and Pacioretty. So for Sean Sloppy Seconds, his top performer, only put up 32.5 fantasy points on the week, but Zach Parise, 16.3 points per game in 2 games, goal and 2 assists, 9 shots. Good week out of Parise. His next player, I got Eberle, 38.5 fantasy points on the week, 12.9 per game. 2 goals, 2 assists, 5 shots, 2 hits. Hopefully Eberle can keep that production up. He had a slow first week to the season. His next player I got on here is Justin Abelkader. 50 fantasy points on the week, 16.6 per game. 1 goal, it happened to be a game winner, so that's always nice. 6 shots and 12 hits, so pretty productive week from Abelkader. Next on here is Drew Doughty, which is good because Drew Doughty was in his bottom feeders last week. He had 2 assists, 3 shots, 7 hits, 13 points per game. That's much better than he had like 5 point something, or I don't know. He was weak in the first week, so better week from Doughty. And then I got Carey Price, 47.5 fantasy points on the week, 23.8 per game. 2 wins with 2 goals against and 61 saves on the week. So pretty good performance from Price. Now for the underachievers for each team, I'll start with Puck Yeah. Cam Atkinson and Mason Raymond, each only tallying 4 fantasy points on the whole week. Now Raymond happened to come in at worst. He played 3 games, 1.3 points per game, only 4 shots on the week. You might as well ditch that guy. And then Cam Atkinson, 2 points per game, and so 4 points in 2 games, -1 rating, 3 shots, 1 hit. Subpar week for Atkinson as well. And then for the SS2, Martin St. Louis, 5.5 fantasy points on the week, 2.8 per game, 1 assist, -3, 4 shots. That's not what you're looking for, especially from a player like that. Then Nino Niederreiter, 8.5 fantasy points per game, 4.3 per game, 1 assist on 2 shots with 1 hit. And then the next guy I got on here is surprising as well, just like the Malkin situation. We've got Ovechkin, only 21.5 fantasy points on the week, 7.2 points per game. Looks like 5 shots and 10 hits, no points on the week. So, but yeah, like I'm accustomed to seeing 18 fantasy points a game from Ovi, so 7.2 on the week. That'll let you down. So that's one of the reasons probably why he came in behind Puck Yeah this week. So in the next matchup, we had completely Stammered and his 445.5 points, falling short of Carlson's of Anarchy's 473 points. This was a tight matchup, probably my favorite of the week. It was back and forth and close all week. So yeah, only a point spread of 27.5, so a real nail biter here. Top performers for completely Stammered. Scott Hartnell had a breakout week. 58 fantasy points, 1 goal, 5 assists, 11 shots, 8 hits, 19.5 points per game. Solid week from Scotty Hartnell. His first, he's looking like he's back in Philly, so that's good to see considering he's not in Philly anymore. Next we got Dustin Byfuglien. 53.5 fantasy points on the week, another good week from Byfuglien. Goal and an assist, 6 shots, 15 hits, 17.8 points per game. Solid performance from Dustin. Claude Giroux is his next player, 36 fantasy points, 3 assists, 13 shots, +3, 12 points per game, so solid performance from Giroux. Carlson's of Anarchy's best player, and to be expected, is Corey Perry, who is absolutely on fire right now. He might score 70 goals this year at this rate. He's on pace, he's goal a game, but I don't see that quite lasting, but pretty ridiculous anyways. 82 fantasy points in the week, 4 goals, 1 assist, 17 PIMs, 15 shots, 2 hits, 20.4 points per game. That's exactly what you want out of a first round draft pick, so Perry's looking really good for Carlson's of Anarchy. His next best player, two players are both Jets. First, we got Brian Little, 49 fantasy points on the week, 2 goals, 1 assist on 7 shots, 16.3 points per game. And then Andrew Ladd, 58.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 2 assists, 12 shots, 8 hits, 19.6 points per game. Now moving on to some underachievers for each team. I'll start with Completely Stammered, and his first one is Dustin Brown, 13.5 fantasy points in the week, 6 shots, 5 hits, 6.8 per game. It's a little bit subpar. Expect a little bit more from Brown, but his role looks to be decreasing in LA, so that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. His next player is Johnny Boychuk, 17.5 fantasy points, 6 shots, 3 hits, 5 points per game. That was a huge drop off after a huge first week from Johnny. And then his last one I got on here is Steven Stamkos. This will hurt you every time. 18 fantasy points on the week, 1 goal, 9 shots, 4.6 points per game though on the whole week. So that was a letdown big time for Completely Stammered. Now moving on to Carlsons of Anarchy. One of his worst players is Brendan Gallagher, 9.5 fantasy points, 3.5 basically points per game, 6 shots, 2 hits with a -2 rating on the week. And the Habs won 2 games this week. They're only 2 games, so that's a pretty bad outing for Gallagher. Next, we've got Gustav Nyquist, 8.5 fantasy points on the week, 6 shots, 2 hits, -1, 2.9 points per game. That's not looking good for Gustav so far this year. And then next we have Val Filppula, 19.5 fantasy points on the week, goal and assist, 2 shots, -3, 4.9 points per game. That's not nearly enough to get it done for Carlsons of Anarchy, but he had some stronger performances this week than Completely Stammered and came out on top by 27.5 points. So in the next matchup, we had Bomb Squad coming out on top over Route 66, 429.5 to 378.5, 51 point spread here for Bomb Squad. Starting off with Bomb Squad top performers, David Krejci, 55.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 2 assists, 9 shots, 18.5 points per game is pretty good. Patrick Sharp, 40 fantasy points, 1 goal, 3 assists, 10 shots, 4 hits, 10 points per game for Sharp, which is also good. Andre Palat was a solid performer for Bomb Squad. 50 fantasy points on the week, 2 goals, 1 assist, 5 shots, 7 hits, 12.5 points per game. Pretty solid performance from Palat. Next is flashback. I like this. This is really good. Mike Green from the Capitals, 39 fantasy points, 1 goal, 2 assists, 8 shots, 4 hits, 13 points per game. I haven't seen anything near anything like this for basically 2 years. And at one time, Green was an absolute monster in fantasy, like the best defenseman by a long shot. But he disappeared for a long time there, so it's good to see him having a good week. Hopefully he can find some of his game and be a solid performer for Bomb Squad. Next, another D-man on Anton Strawman, 39 fantasy points in the week, 1 goal, 2 assists, 5 hits, 9.8 points per game. Pretty solid outing from Strawman. Route 66 top performer, Sidney Crosby, 49 fantasy points, 1 goal, 2 assists, 10 shots, 6 hits, 16.3 points per game. His next best player is Pekka Rinne. Nashville's really hot, and Rinne's reaping the benefits of that. 2 wins, 1 loss, 8 goals against, 86 saves, 16.4 points per game for Rinne. Solid production from a goalie. Next, Tyler Johnson, 42.5 fantasy points, 5 assists, 14 shots, 1 hit, 10.6 points per game. That's a pretty good outing for a week from Tyler Johnson. Another goalie for Route 66, Fleury, 38.5 fantasy points, 1 goal, 1 assist. The shutout is what got him into this. 53 saves, 19.3 points per game. It's pretty good from Fleury. Next, Charlie Coyle, 36.5 fantasy points on the week. But it's because of the 12.8 per game that he got on here. Goal and assist with a game winner, 3 shots and 3 hits. Once again, Wild were one of the lowest total game teams for the week. So a good outing from Coyle. Also, he signed a contract this week, so might be just looking up from here. Worst performers for Bomb Squad, and it's sad to say again, Nathan McKinnon has made this list for him. 8.5 fantasy points, 1 assist, -2, 6 shots, 2.8 points per game. That's back-to-back terrible weeks for McKinnon. Hopefully he can pick it up, at least give you a few good outings here, and maybe turn it around a bit for you. Next, Jonathan Toews, 28 fantasy points, 1 goal, 1 assist, -2 rating, 16 shots, 7 points per game. That's not quite enough from a guy like Toews. You'd like to see up around the 10 or even the 12 point per game mark for him. And then next as Marian Hossa, 22 fantasy points on the week, 2 assists, -2, 11 shots, 3 hits, 5.5 points per game. Again, you expect to see, especially from Hossa, he's got to be putting the puck in the back of the net to get you points. Just the assists aren't going to get it done for him. So 5.5 per game is not good enough for Hossa. Now for Route 66, worst performer, I've got Patrick Hornqvist on here. 13.5 fantasy points per game on the week. 8 shots, 1 hit, 1 assist, 4.5 points per game. So he had a significant drop-off from his first week. But he's still playing with Crosby, so still is looking good for Hornqvist. We'll see what kind of rebound he has in week 3. So Alex Steen is his next player, 10.5 points on the week, 1 assist, -2, 5 shots, 5.25 points per game. It's a little low. It's certainly low for a guy like Steen, who was on fire last year, scored a ton of goals. And then his last player I got on here for worst performers is Shea Weber. 16.5 fantasy points, 5 shots, 6 hits, 5 blocks, 5.5 points per game. Not very good production from Shea Weber. So in the next matchup, we had Mercedes-Benz beating Winnipeg Chiselers 534.5 to 411.5, 123 point differential there. Once again, I'm going to say this, Winnipeg Chiselers again, a little bit of failure to get the roster set. Like I said last week, probably not going to win too many matchups if you're not getting your roster set all the time. So he comes out in the losing effort here. Some of the top performers for Mercedes-Benz, Brent Burns, 59.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 1 assist, 18 shots, 14.9 points per game. Solid outing for a D-man. Next, Radim Verbata, 50.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 3 assists, 17 shots, 12.6 points per game. Solid from Verbata. He's off to a great start. Next, we had Jamie Benn, 45.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 2 assists, 1 game winner, 15.2 points per game on the week for him. Daniel Sedin for Mercedes-Benz, 42 fantasy points in the week, 1 goal, 3 assists, 14 shots, 10.5 per game. That's pretty good for Daniel. And then another surprise, Tyler Toffoli, 37.5 fantasy points on the week, 1 goal, 4 assists in 2 games, over 18 fantasy points per game. Toffoli is off to an incredible start right now. He's like, him and Jeff Carter and Pearson are just sensational right now. Basically, every time the Kings score, one of those three is involved in some fashion. So he's been a great start to the year for him. For Winnipeg Chiselers, top performers, great week. Joe Pavelski, 64 fantasy points on the week, 3 goals, 1 assist, 1 game winner, 11 shots, 16 points per game. Solid from Joe Pavelski. A rebound week for the Nuge, out in Edmonton, 49.5 points this week, 3 goals, 1 game winner, 16.5 points per game. Much better than his first week totals. Lucic made it in as top performers again, 43.5 fantasy points, 1 goal, 3 assists, 10 hits, 14.5 points per game. Solid from Lucic. Andrew Shaw from the Blackhawks, 38 fantasy points, 1 goal, 11 shot, 8 hits, 9.5 per game. I got him in here just because that's solid production from a guy like Shaw, so I'd like to see that. And then Jaromir Jagr, 11.8 points per game, getting him 35.5 fantasy points this week, 2 goals, 1 assist on 4 shot. Pretty good outing from Jagr. Some underachievers, starting with Mercedes-Benz. Nazem Kadri, 5.5 points on the week, 4 shots, 1 hit, 2.8 points per game. It's not going to get it done. Chris Letang, bad week, 10 fantasy points in the week, -4, 8 shots, 2 hits, 3.4 points per game. That's not good enough from Letang. And then Mika Zibanejad, 6.5 fantasy points on the week, 5 hits, -1, 3.3 per game. All of the above, not good enough on a weekly basis for those types of performers. Then moving over to the Chislers, Thomas Hertl, I almost call him Ninja Hurdles, but Thomas Hertl, 15.5 points on the week, 1 assist, -4 with 3 shots, 3.9 per game. That's terrible. One of the worst. Like I have a couple, but basically you're under 5 or even 4. Like that's bare minimums for fantasy production per game. Then 2 blues and 2 super letdowns for Winnipeg Chislers. David Backus, 17 fantasy points on the week, 4 shots, 4 hits, 1 assist, 8.5 per game. That's a first round draft pick right there. He last year and the year before and the year before that, he was constantly getting, upwards of 15 points per game. So 8.5 is not good enough from him. And then TJ Oshie, 12.5 fantasy points in the week, 1 assist, 1 shot, 4 hits, 6.3 per game. Once again, I'd like to see a little bit more out of Oshie. He's up to a really slow start, so hopefully he can pick it up, and Backus can also pick it up. That would prove to be beneficial for the Chislers going forward. The Lucky 13 this week, a little switch up. I'm going to do top 3 forwards of the season, top 2 of the week. Same thing with Demon, top 3 of the season, top 2 of the week. And goalies, I'm going to do top of the season and top of the week. And for the season, I'm basing the top 3 on points per game. So tied for first is Zach Parise and Corey Perry with 20.4 points per game. I'll give Perry the edge here. He's played 9 games, 9 goals, 3 assists, +7, 23 PIMs, 1 goal, game-winning goal, 34 shots, 8 hits. Pretty incredible stat line to start the season for Perry. And then Parise, 20.4 per game as well. 6 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 17 PIMs, +8, 36 shots, 7 hits. So he's off to a good start as well. Easier to keep that higher with less games, so we'll see where he's at after 3 more games. But 20.4 so far through the season is really good for Parise. And coming in third so far in the season is Tyler Seguin, and his 18.9 points per game. He's got 8 games played, 6 goals, 7 assists, 2 game winners, 29 shots, and 6 hits. So for the week, number 1, obviously Corey Perry. He got 82 points this week, 4 goals, 1 assist, 17 PIMs. Solid week from Perry. And then the second best forward of the week was Tommy Wingles. 72 fantasy points, 1 goal, 1 assist, 20 shots, and 20 hits. Pretty incredible week for Wingles to break the top 2. So looking good moving forward for him. Moving on to the defense. The top defenseman of the season, Dustin Byfuglien, 15.5 points per game, 2 goals, 1 assist, 25 PIMs, 27 shots, 27 hits. He's playing forward though, so I had a tough time putting him in here, although he does have the D rating or for player role in our league, so I'll give him that. So pretty solid so far for start of the season for Byfuglien. Second best so far this season, Brent Burns, 13.6 points per game, 3 goals, 7 assists, 14 PIMs, 31 shots, and 14 hits. And then next is PK Subban, and actually PK is the best. I messed up here, but yeah, PK is in first, and then Buff is in second, and Burns is third so far in the season. But PK, 15.8 points per game, 3 goals, 3 assists, 14 PIMs, 21 shots, 17 hits. Incredible start for PK. Now the top 2 of the week. Number 1, Brent Burns, 59.5 fantasy points, 2 goals, 1 assist, 8 PIMs on the week. Byfuglien, 53 fantasy points on the week. Good enough for second best defenseman of all D-men through the week. 1 goal, 1 assist, 6 shots, 15 hits. One honorable mention here, though, is Dennis Wideman tied Byfuglien for 53.5. However, Wideman's a free agent. If anybody out there feels like taking a flyer on him, he's available. Now, moving on to the goalies. Best goalie so far this season, Darcy Kemper, 23.7 points per game. 4 wins, 1 loss, 4 goals against, 113 saves, and 3 shutouts. 4 wins, 3 shutouts, totaling 118.5 fantasy points. Pretty incredible start for Minnesota and Darcy Kemper. And the top goalie of the week is Jonathan Quick, 52.5 fantasy points, 2 wins, no losses, 2 goals against, 53 shots with a shutout. So that's a solid week from him. And then I'm going to give Scrivens, though, another honorable mention, who actually beat Quick on the week. However, he's a free agent, so I didn't feel like putting him in here. But yeah, he actually had the most points, 60 points. He was 3-0 in the week. So he still plays with the Oilers. They had a good week, though. So, and then one more note before we bring this to a close is interesting stat I noticed when I was going through the info for the video here is all the losers from this week in their matchups had either their first or their second round draft pick in their underachievers category. So, those are some guys to keep an eye on if they continue to struggle, possibly buying low on them, or you never know, maybe they turn their games around.